Want to start the meeting?
Please call the meeting to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. First item is approval of the minutes from October 1st. Adopting the agenda first. Moved by Commissioner Gillette, supported by Commissioner Romano. All those, please vote. Thank you. Very good. Next is approval of the minutes. Need a motion to approve the minutes. Supported by Sauger, moved by Sauger, supported by Kleinfeld. Please vote. I know she doesn't miss a comma. Very good. Thank you. Item 5 is public participation. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Anyone from the public wish to address the committee on anything on the agenda? One more time. Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing no one, we'll close public participation. Item 6 is budget reviews, and first one is item A, Public Works with Commissioner Candace Miller. The floor is yours, and your team is...
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, you don't need Steve.
What's that?
Sit down, Steve. She
All
can
right,
handle it.
go ahead.
No, I'm teasing Steve.
I don't care. I can Go ahead.
Budget's on page C57. Again, Commissioner Miller will speak to her budget more in depth than I will. Total budget's about $6.8 million. It's going up about 3.7%. Almost all of that's being driven by the fringe benefit cost increases that we've spoken about in the past. Full-time wages are going up 1.6%. So that's right in line with the 1% increase. They went through a little bit of a reorganization this year, saved some money by eliminating a full-time position, adding another full-time position at a lower cost. You'll see in the FTE count, it's going up by 2. It's 2 part-time drain laborers for 1 FTE and 2 part-time typist clerks for 1 FTE. But overall, operating budget is right in line with past years. And one other thing we added in the non-departmental appropriations, we added $50,000 to the county at-large drain appropriation. That was something new or something we kind of resurrected last year, or Commissioner Miller resurrected. We added $50,000 to that. We also added $25,000 or 50% revenue match from the local unit, so net cost to the general fund of $25,000. So that concludes my comments. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Miller.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
Appreciate
afternoon.
the opportunity to be here and talk a little bit about our budget. I thought what I'd do is a little more global type of approach to tell you some of the different things that we've done this year. And then I'm going to have Brian Baker, my chief deputy, sort of go through the more of the financial accomplishments and what the budget is actually asking for. But last year when I was here, of course, we at this time, we were just completing the sinkhole, which we, as you all know, came in way under budget and way ahead of schedule. And that was in December, and so I was here last year in October. But anyway, this year, I want to talk a little bit about some of our key accomplishments. One of the things that we've done, now that I don't have the sinkhole going on, we're able to be a little bit more, not so reactive, but really more proactive. And so we have undertaken a comprehensive master plan countywide for the entire underground, and we are working with every municipality in the county. This is long overdue and something that needs to be done. I mean, you can think about not having a master plan in Chesterfield Township or Sterling Heights or something, not having a master county road plan. Many people have said because of some of the congestion in some areas of our county, we haven't had good cooperation, or I should say good coordination, with not having a good planning for a lot of different things that happen. Same thing underground, right? The same thing underground. So we are working with every municipality, getting all of their data for what their master plans are calling for, so that we understand what kind of capacity might be needed in the future. Obviously, totally up to the local communities, but at least that we can start planning for such a thing. In the northern part and some of the older underground in the southern part of the county, et cetera. So we're looking at all of that. A big part of that, an impetus of this, will be how we can eventually eliminate, but certainly how we can get on the road to reduce combined sewer overflows. That was really a principal reason for me even to run for this job. I just thought, this is crazy. We don't have to live this way. In Macomb County, I think it's important to note that there are only 2 places under the purview of the Public Works where we discharge, where we spill. One is at Chapaton, which is at 9 Mile and Jefferson. That facility handles St. Clair Shores and East Point. And then we have another facility called Martin, the Martin Retention, which is sort of about 10.5 Mile in Jefferson and St. Clair Shores. That handles Roseville. Outside of that, Warren has their own issues with discharges, but of course we don't have Warren, so I will let them speak to their issue there. But we looked at, everybody talks about how you got to separate sewers, which is the optimal thing to do, certainly. Just for Chapaton, which would be, as I say, East Point and St. Clair Shores, the estimated cost to separate sewers would be about $370 million. If you can just digest that for a second. If you think about maybe a $20,000 per household assessment in East Point, where a house might be worth $50,000, I mean, let's be serious here. What are we going to do? So we also did some value engineering, and we came up with another plan by putting a lot of sensors in our existing capacity, where we find we have very large interceptors, and during the heavy wet weather events, the flow times where we'd have to discharge, we have excess capacity. So we are working with putting together a plan right now. I've actually already let a contract to do a design where you actually put gates in the interceptors so you can hold the flow back, so you don't have to, until the wet weather goes away, and you're able then to send it down to Detroit without having to discharge. We think that our Chapaton has about 30 million gallons of retention currently, and by doing this, we think we can get another 20 million gallons, which is an enormous increase. And in addition to that, where our outfall is, in other words, where we discharge, and there's a canal that runs behind Chapaton, if we move the outfall to the end of the canal, we think we could get another 10 million gallons. So we essentially could double the amount of retention we have, which would eliminate our discharges by 70 to 75%. And the cost for that is $30 million. So that's a lot of money, but it's a lot less than $370 million and gets us a long way down the field. And I will at some point be coming to talk to the county about how we're all in the blue economy here, and we got to come up with some money. So we're looking at that. That'd probably be
green with the blue.
That's right. We have cleaned out a number of drains under the Drain Match program. My staff says all I got to do is push the arrow here, and this thing will go. Where are you looking at it? On your computers? On your? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we've done this match program. We're actually out of money already. We've been out of money for about over a month. That thing took off like wildfire all through these communities. This thing was starred up by my staff, who didn't star everywhere, actually, as I looked at it. And fortunately, Commissioner Lucido gave me a red pen. But because we actually did the Harrington Drain here in Clinton Township, and also runs through Fraser here. This is the match program, but we've done a lot of other drain work in the other communities. We're working on the Bear Creek through Warren. We've done 3 major storm drains in St. Clair Shores and Roseville that all outfall into Lake St. Clair. We're about to do we got another SAW grant for something called Lake Boulevard down here. And we've done, I think, I want to say about 9 miles of storm drain, enclosed storm drain, all through Sterling Heights and their major drains as well. So we're all over the county. We're all over the county. But I have just a couple of pictures to show you what this thing looks like. So our drain match program. All right, Dan, I'm pushing the arrow. Nothing's happening. It never works, right? These things never work. Which one? Right, this one, right? Or you got to go this way?
I don't know.
All right. Well, if we don't have pictures, we don't have pictures, I guess. Oh, okay, let's get the millennial up here.
There you go.
All right, okay. Push the arrow. I can figure that out, but you got to have...
No, not even the millennial can figure it out.
Huh? The millennial? All right, okay, well...
Have you know.
That's right.
Well, anyway, we have some great pictures, but you can't see them right now. Oh, there you go. You got one. What happened?
It won't work.
Okay. All right, I'm going to keep talking while the millennial fools around with this thing. We partnered with the HCMA to do something on the beaches, on Metro Beach. One thing, by the way, both Chapaton and Martin, when you hear about CSOs causing beach closures, we are not doing that because the beach closures, I mean, first of all, where it's outfalling is south of Metro Beach. Now, obviously, it can't physically run up into the lake. There are other things that are causing some of the beach closures, but we worked with them with something called Goosebusters. And so what we did is they've hired border collies, trained border collies. They run the border collies randomly 6 days a week. They chase these geese off the beach, which sounds ridiculously simple and cheap, and it is. Last year, Metro Beach was closed 6 weeks. This year, 2 days. So, of course, we didn't have a lot of rain either. That was a contributing factor, but still, it's something. Okay, here's some pictures of the drain. So this drain, I don't even know which drain this is, the way that my staff has set this up. Here you can see that the our contractor is starting. This is a match program, starting to clean out the drain. You can see sort of how it's going to go. I'm just telling you, this thing won't work. If it doesn't work, just forget it.
No, we figured it out.
Okay, all right.
No, we figured it out.
Okay. Make it happen. We also, while the millennial is figuring this out, we've also completed about $9 million worth of, okay, what do I have to do? Is this a trick or what?
Yeah, we'll just have to click through.
All right,
I'll stand here and do it.
all right, okay.
This is the banister drain in Shelby.
Okay, well, let me just finish here about, we've also completed almost $9 million of Great Lakes Restoration Initiative projects in the Clinton River Spillway, in the Glody Drain. The chairman was out to that one that runs behind Partridge Creek. And the McBride Drain is just completing right now, which runs all through Macomb Township, and the pond that's by the township offices there. And that drain runs all through Macomb Township. And you know that pond next to the township, if you went there, you know, a year and a half or whatever ago, you never saw a living thing on that thing. And if you drive in there early in the morning, it is covered with geese. Yeah, the geese, right. But some swans, ducks, you know, at least they're living in there. And there's fish. Fish have come back. Pike. All right. Why don't you do it? All right. So anyway, we've got these different drains. This is the Bannister Drain in Shelby Township. Okay, they saw that one. Go to the next one. This is a culvert under the path, obviously. It's completely clogged. So this is before, and this is after. And you can see the huge difference here. And again, all this water flowing. These are a couple of drains over in Harrison Township. We actually worked with the base. They had this big area here that they hadn't been able to work on, I guess. They asked us whether or not our drain maintenance crews could help here. And here's what you see afterward. And we thought that was an important thing to help, obviously, our military neighbors there. This is a drain called the Erwin Drain that runs in Harrison, sort of runs over a little bit over by Selfridge. This is a junkyard that's there, and this guy had, you see these buses? All these buses were just over the top of the drain, leaking oil, God knows what, forever. And this is what it looks like today. So these are some of the things that this money that we're asking you for, the drain maintenance has gone to. This is a Harrington Drain that my staff forgot to mark up on the chart over there in Clinton Township. And again, we're just sort of trying to show you the before and the after. This one is over in Chesterfield Township, Fish Creek East. And you can see how on the left there, all the banks were all eroding, falling in, et cetera. And very much an eyesore. All that sediment, of course, is washing down into the lake, into the river, and what it looks like afterward. But I could have showed you, when we could sit here all afternoon and look at these photos. It's amazing. And, you know, really, I know the road commission is going to be up today, and they've been a great partner with us. We've got a lot of these drains where we're cleaning, where we say, okay, we're going to clean the drain out, but the road culvert's at the wrong angle. We did a whole bunch of those in Harrison, and so they came out and replaced the culvert when we got up to that part. And obviously, by draining, these drains really help stabilize the roads. Some of these neighborhoods, literally, we have lowered the drain, the water in the drain by several feet. You just see, it's like someone pulled the plug out of a bathtub, and these entire neighborhoods go whoosh, you know? It's just been amazing. We're trying to do a lot of different kinds of public education. what'd I do with my, I'll be quick here, I don't want to go on too long. You stop me whenever you want. I could go on and on, but we're trying to do it, we're sort of developing a library, if you will, of different best practices that we're trying to get around. You know, if you're a concrete contractor, even if you're putting in a new driveway or a flag of cement, in the past, many of them just wash this concrete wash right down the storm drains, right? So we have been very, we've got these flyers out with every municipality now. Anyone in Macomb County now who's getting a permit to do this work needs to know how to properly handle that. And some of these guys called and said, well, we've been doing that for years. We just wash it down the drain. I said, well, you're not doing it anymore, okay? We're not doing that. We're going to prosecute. You cannot do that. That stuff just can't go out into the lake. We had an issue with something called a Fatberg. I don't know if any of you followed the Fatberg, right by the Clintondale pump station. We had a 100-foot long, this is an 11-foot diameter pipe, 11 foot wide, about 6 feet deep, solid fat. Whether restaurants are not cleaning out their grease traps or whatever happened, and of course all kinds of other stuff that came along with that. Anyway, our guys were trying to blow it out with a hydrojet. That did not work, so we had to hire Doach. They came in. They tried to use their high-powered stuff. Didn't work. They actually had to go in the interceptor and build a platform over the top of the Fatberg, and they had to go down with hand saws to get this Fatberg out. But anyway, it's been laid to rest now in a landfill. And it's gone. But, you know, again, we're working with the Macomb County Health Department. They've got flyers that they're giving out when they do their restaurant inspections, et cetera, to make sure that, you know, the staff knows what to do about their grease traps, et cetera. Residential areas, you know, the churches during Lent, right? They get all the fish fries and everything. We're just trying to educate folks very gently. Can't keep doing that. When I first got this job, when I would go around and speak, I'd say, I really don't know how many drains we have in the county. I think we have about 900, could be 800, I'm not sure. We didn't even know how many drains we have. So we've done now a countywide drain map, which I'll get you all a copy of. It's just being completed. The real number is about 475. We didn't even know how many drains we had. So step one, what do you have? what do you need to do with them? You know? We also have been pretty good about getting grants. We feel real good about the amounts of grants that we've gotten. And those of you that come to our drain board meetings know we're always talking about SAW grants. We have millions of dollars of SAW grants that are out being used right now for all kinds of different things, whether it's in our storm drains, whether it's work in our interceptors, et cetera. We just got recently, and we'll be starting this, Commissioner Romano and Myjack know, the Sterling Relief Drain is, I think, $1.8 million that we got of a couple of different grants that we're going to be using that to. About half of that's going to be green infrastructure, so the entire look of that drain is now going to be really beautiful rather than just very sterile. A lot of green infrastructure and also what we call daylighting. So we're taking out the enclosed storm drains that are there in some areas, the laterals, and opening those up so you can sort of let Mother Nature be the sponge and do her work. And it will really be great for water quality and help us a lot in that area. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much longer, but we do have some financial things I wanted to have Brian mention to you. I'm sure Brian will tell you that we're the very first department to implement a remote direct deposit, and I just mentioned that as a former county treasurer here. So we used to have to, what has happened over all of these years is we would have so much duplication of the staff of just handling the money. So we'd take in a check, and then literally we had an employee who every single day had to drive from the Public Works down to the treasurer's office, right, to bring the physical check. And then we've changed our banking account now to match up with the counties. And so you eliminate the person that has to drive the checks up. But what we do now is we scan the checks right on site, and immediately goes into our account. It saves so much time and money. So, you know, technology can be our friend. And we're looking at all kinds of various things. And I'm going to have Brian sort of talk about some of those. We've refinanced a bunch of drain bonds. He can talk about, he's the bean counter back here, and has been a fantastic help in identifying a lot of financial savings that we can do for the county as well. Brian Baker.
Thank you, Candace. I will be brief as well. Just want to let you know we're the last department to go on your county financial system So that is a great thing that we're now on the one solution program. We have refinanced bonds. We've saved now $6.9 million since we got here. We saved $900,000 just this last year, and we're working on another bond as we speak right now for the mid communities. Hopefully, save about $400,000 or so. So all good stuff. Want to talk on, I know the board is interested in saving money, and that's one of our focuses as well. On the document imaging program, we'll be talking about that, I think, on the IT budget. But we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by finding microfiche going back from the 1980s that no one knew about in the office. We were able to actually very inexpensively put those into PDFs, so we don't need to scan those, and we can apply that to the imaging program. That saved money. We outsourced lawn mowing in our drainage districts. More importantly, that allowed those staffs to do some of the things that our contractors were doing. More high-tech stuff that will save about $150,000 by having some people mow lawns. Now our staff can do more important things. As you know, we insourced the SCADA program. We hired a part-time person. We saved $75,000 doing that. And we also insured some of our drain assets. And as a result, the drains are now paying for that insurance rather than the county general fund. That saved $60,000. So we're looking at a couple other things. I know we've requested radios in the emergency management budget. You'll be talking about that. We believe now, instead of the general fund paying that, our drainage districts can pay for those radios. So that'll save the general fund $30,000. Important to know, in our budget, 40% of our costs and our staff are funded by the drainage districts, so not the general fund. And importantly, last year we also took a look at our administrative staff and said a certain percent of your time is devoted to these districts. So these districts are now paying for about $280,000 of our administrative costs. That saves the general fund $280,000. So really briefly, in terms of our budget, we're asking, the only ask that we're asking for is for drain maintenance. Steve talked about the $25,000 net increase for the successful drain match program that the communities have to fund 50% of that, and it's a very low-cost way of financing these repairs to prevent more future expensive repairs. We're also asking $32,000 for 2 part-time drain staff. What these 2 individuals will do will allow our crews, our full-time crews, to then divide up into 2 separate crews. So we'll be able to maximize our efforts, work much more efficiently. Our revenue budget increased to $123,000. We continue to flatten our organization, saving money, and a portion of those savings, as Steve said, will allow us to budget 2 part-time positions at no additional cost. That's the 1 FTE. Most of that is for a part-time document assistant, and what that person will do is go through all of our files to make sure we eliminate all our duplicates so we don't scan them. We don't scan more documents than we need, so that will save us money. Again, we've reduced our operating expenses, saved money on our vehicles and cell phone costs, and we've directed only a portion of that savings to E. coli dogs, which you'll be hearing about, emergency response booms. Whenever there's an oil leak in a drain, we can go out there and respond, and we also have additional Excella training. So all that summarizes our budget requests. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Before you step down, the vehicle operations for 18 was 46,000. It's going to 46,000 next year. Drops down to 20,000 in 19. Prior to that, 16, it was $32,000. What's driving the vehicle cost there?
Another savings to the general fund. We're expensing that now in the drainage districts.
Oh, okay. All right. So I know you got rid of some vehicles over there.
We got rid of 6 vehicles as well, auctioned those off, and there's far fewer take-home vehicles. But the bulk of that was now expensing the vehicles where they belong.
Okay.
We
We've
did
got
have
some,
a few vehicles that we auctioned off. Even right after I got there, we had a couple that
Yeah.
we didn't need anymore.
yeah. Well, that's good. Hopefully you did a good thorough inspection of them before you sold them. Commissioner Lucido.
Hi, thank you for coming. It's a great presentation. One of the questions I had was the workers' comp and unemployment went up about 77,000, and were there injuries, or do we know why?
No, that's what we spoke about numerous times, about the charge for compensated absences, going up from 1% of payroll to 3% to cover PTO time. So that line includes workers' comp, unemployment, long-term disability, compensated absences, something else I'm drawing a blank on, but a small percentage. So anyway, the largest component of that, and you'll see that across all departments. I think I've mentioned it almost every time, that's the biggest piece.
A lot, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for your presentation. You had mentioned that a number of costs have been assessed to the drain districts that had previously been paid for by the county. How are the drain districts, do you know how they're handling those costs? Is this something that they've had to pass on, or have they had extra resources in the drain funds? Do you know?
Well, and Brian, you might help me out with this one, but yeah, we've really gone through all the different drainage districts, right? To make sure that we're trying to assess all the costs appropriately, apportion them appropriately to the various drainage districts. We've had, for instance, I mentioned the Martin retention. The Martin retention is actually what they call a Chapter 20 drainage district, which requires under state statute that you have drain board meetings, and they never had a drain board meeting. Okay, I don't know what happened, but there was none. And that's principally Roseville, and over all of these years, the Chappaqua district and other areas, they were just gathering money from these other areas to pay for whatever had to happen at Martin, which, by the way, was almost nothing. That literally is duct taped together, literally. And it's a very large retention basin that is spilling into the lake. So we went through, now we have regular drainage board meetings, and now we've apportioned those funds. And Roseville and St. Clair Shores and East Point, all the mayors, we have worked very closely with them, their city managers, their finance people, their attorneys, et cetera, so that they knew what our budgets are going to be for these various facilities, because their ratepayers have to pay, right? And they've been totally, I mean, you haven't heard a peep from them, I don't think. They've been really good. We've been very engaged with all of them.
But do you know, have those drain districts then responded by raising some of the rates to the payers to cover these additional costs, or have they had additional?
Not too bad. Actually, some of the costs that I mentioned were savings to the drainage districts. For example, when our employees don't mow the lawns anymore and we contract that out very cheaply, it frees up those guys to do some high-tech maintenance that saves about $150,000, for example, in 8.5 Mile District. They can do that as opposed to a contractor, so that saves them money. The SCADA, for example. The SCADA saved the mid $75,000.
What's a SCADA again?
SCADA is an automated.
It's an electronic
I don't know what it
tool
stands for.
that is used to be able to understand exactly where the. Okay.
Nice.
It tells you what the flow is within the pipes, within the interceptor. So in other words, when we had the sewer collapse, we were always looking at the SCADA, which we do anyway, but it would tell you if the levels were getting to a point where you had to discharge.
Right.
So they're looking at it all the time.
So by bringing in a part-time person, we didn't have to hire this company anymore to manage that. So that saved money. But I'll tell you what the biggest savings was in the mid alone is we had $2 million worth of legal costs that were being spent annually, and we're nowhere near that. We're 150,000. So my point being, even though there's been some increases, there's been the savings to offset them.
Okay, so the net result has not really, to your knowledge, been any necessary increases in rates?
Not for operation, there's been project-based.
Right, well, obviously, we know some substantial project.
Yes, but not operational.
Okay.
I'll tell you, when we get to the point, though, like for instance, at the Chappaqua, if it's a $30 million, it will be approximately, it's our guesstimate, $30 million project, we're going to have to try to figure out how to pay for that.
Right.
And my plan, I mean, ratepayers, obviously, but we've already been talking to our congressional delegation about whether or not we could get any GLRI money, through the Army Corps, some of the energy and commerce stuff. We're looking for grants there. We're talking, hopefully we get something, through other sources. I know WRDA just, through the Senate just passed, has got some money in there. We're looking at that. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be back to the county saying, I know this is just St. Clair Shores and East Point, but it's our county. And we have to clean up our county so that then, at some point, we can go tell Oakland County to stop discharging all their stuff into the Clinton River and down on our heads here.
Okay, well, another quick question. There was mention made of the 800 megahertz radio system that I know the county's been talking about, spending $4 million to upgrade that system. Are you saying the radios that would be used, and we know that the road department uses some of those radios, the public works department uses some of those, is your department then anticipating paying for those radios out of your budget? Or are you applying for a grant for some of those radios, or how?
So this is just the handheld radios. So 20 handheld radios, about 30,000 we would charge to the drainage districts. Those are the employees and the benefits are coming from them. So.
I see. I don't know if that covers then all the radios that the public works department needs, if it's 800 megahertz system?
All of them.
Okay. So that would be all that would be necessary, is about $30,000. And just one quick note to the rest of the commissioners. I know Candace, or the commissioner, gave a tour to some of us commissioners of some of the projects, several months ago. That was very valuable because given, sometimes it's a little hard to picture what you're describing, but the way it apparently has been working for a number of years is when there's a lot of rain and there's combined sewage overflows, they would flow into the pipes and they would flow into our limited retention area where we retain as long as possible, and then it was released down a channel into the lake if the overflow continued. Well, the recognition that if we put a stop at the end of that channel, that would serve as an additional area of retention. It's kind of surprising that no one ever thought of it before. Once it's suggested, once it's put in your mind, you're like, yeah, we just dump it down this long channel where it just flows in the lake. We could put a stop at the end of it. Makes so much sense, but it hadn't been done for years. And then the idea that just by stopping the pipes up, there's storage capacity in those pipes throughout the system. And that also could store to prevent discharging until a point where it could be treated. It's kind of innovative solutions that are so common sense it's a little embarrassing that no one ever thought of them before or something like that, because once it's explained to you, once you hear about it, it seems kind of obvious. It's like, wow, we've been dumping raw sewage in the lake for all these years, and there was these solutions that are relatively cost effective, and no one ever really implemented them or thought of them or cared. It was really kind of stunning to see that. So I appreciate that tour, and I hope if you do it in the future that other commissioners have an opportunity to go on that, because I certainly learned an awful lot from that, and I appreciated it. Thank you very much.
Well, one thing, yeah, in regards to the capacity of the pipe, I asked the question, well, could we use the existing underground? Well, they're 11 foot, they're 12 foot diameter, whatever they are. Well, how much, when you have a heavy rain, how much of that capacity is used? No, I said, well, we have to, okay, so then we put flow meters in there and find that we do have a lot of excess capacity. So anyway, I appreciate that. One thing you said, though, we don't put raw sewage in the lake. We do treat the sewage. So, and it's up to the current DEQ standards. But, I've talked to many of our state legislatures and said, you guys got to raise these standards. Force our hands, force Oakland's hands. Detroit. Now, Detroit, on the other hand, puts all kinds of raw sewage. You want to know why Toledo has to close their water intake? Everybody is downstream of somebody. So, okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Commissioner
you all so
Kleinfeld.
much.
Oh, excuse me,
Oh,
Commissioner
sorry.
Romano.
Oh, sure.
Commissioner Romano.
Leonetti, I think it
Commissioner
is.
Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Baker, if I may.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Commissioner.
You're used to questioning him, right?
I like talking about money. Brian knows that.
We're doing public art, Joe.
Sinkhole, we purchased that home. I'm going to throw figures up, $200,000, and in the same breath, we also sold a home for $200,000. Was that a wash? What happened to that money? Or first of all, first question first. Where did the money come to buy the home that
It
was
came out
level?
It came out of the project cost of the sinkhole.
I'm sorry. It came out of the project cost of the sinkhole.
It
Where
was
did the
part-
money come from?
The mid. So
The
it
mid.
was part of the bond that we sold. We actually saved $4 million on that project, but it was part of the bond that was sold for that project.
So
it's
the-
the mid tax, or not the taxpayers, but the ratepayers in the mid district.
So when we sold the other house, was that money applied to the mid fund?
Yes, it was.
And we also have a piece on Garfield worth, and I'm going to again throw figures out there. I want to say $4 million. Am I close?
That's going to be the floor, not the ceiling. Yes. But
$4 million.
We're
So
about to have a public auction on that
November 14th.
Where does that money go?
That money will go back to the mid.
That will also reduce the bond?
Correct. It'll go to those benefit of those ratepayers.
Okay, we have financial questions on here, and and after listening to you, Brian, and the money that you're saving us, I'd be embarrassed to even start asking about this money that you're spending, because in comparison to what we're saving, you're head and shoulders above the saving end of it. And I think as Commissioner Miller mentioned, when we have the drain board meetings, and as everybody knows, I love grants. Those are my favorites. And if there's a grant out there that we can apply for, they're doing it at the Public Works Department, and I commend them for that. And we once mentioned that here at the Commissioners meeting, that we should also look within ourselves to see what other grants are available. But I'm sure if we have any trouble at all, we can go to Brian and he'll help us out. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair. For a fee. In the general, thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Good to see you. Great presentation. Always enjoy the drain board meetings, and it's like you gave a great summation of what we've learned over the last year. So good stuff. I do have a question for Brian, though. So.
They're interested in money.
So, Brian, I want to talk a little bit about those part-time jobs you're talking about, because when we look on our budget sheet, we see that 2018 had $69,000 in part-time wages, and now we're going up to about 150. So it's about $80,000.
Yep.
You said there were two positions at $32,000 apiece.
No.
Okay, maybe that's
32,000 for both two
okay.
drain positions.
Okay, so
Yep.
16,000 apiece then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then that accounts for 32,000 of the 80. Do we
Yep.
do we know where the other?
Yep, the other two primarily is the document imaging
Okay.
person that I spoke of.
Yep.
And then an environmental intern, summer
Okay.
intern.
Okay.
But if you take a look at our full-time wages, shows you them going down even with a 1% increase.
Oh yeah, and like Commissioner Romano said, I was there yesterday. You were going to do a chart. Remember, shows
Yeah,
how much you
savings,
saved
yeah.
versus
I was upset
You don't have
Commissioner Carabelli was not here.
Yeah, he would have liked to have seen it. But no, thank you. That answers my question. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Yep,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. First, could we get an email with several of the before and after pictures? It's something that we might want to be able to share with people within our community.
We'd be happy to do that. One thing, we could also really just have the link to go onto our Facebook page, our website. We've improved our website, by the way, but anyway, we have, I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands of people following our Facebook anymore. It's really crazy. And we have got all kinds of videos up there about various things. All these pictures and, all the drain work, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, gosh, we've put up a couple of these videos about this different projects that we're doing. And by the time we're done, it's like 50,000 people are watching these things. It's just really,
Yeah, well,
it's
what
amazing.
I was thinking is like sometimes, like I go in and speak to the local homeowners organization, and while it's not projects that I'm responsible for, it allows me to explain to them what different departments do.
Right.
Sometimes I'm just an educational tool, and this is what this department does, and this is some of the things that show you when you're spending this money in your water bill, and these are some of the things that are happening. That's all. I just thought it would be a nice tool.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. We also have some additional copies of these that you can hand out if you want, our annual report sort of things.
Okay.
Which are really good. Homeowners, they love the old pictures on the back. We always put a historic picture on the back of Hubert Humphrey was there 50 years ago at Chapaton, opening up cutting the ribbon at Chapaton, HH.
Very good.
And just real quick with respect to the ratepayers, things are a little convoluted down there because you've got the cities that have their own pipes, you've got the SEMSD that's doing stuff, you have the county that's doing stuff, and not all of it has been very cleanly delineated. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
You're working on it, but it's hard to say whether one particular thing. I will say East Point last year had to raise their rates significantly, but it's not necessarily attributed to them or any one factor. Everything is so convoluted down there right now, and there's work being done to sort of figure out whose roles are whose. so that's not an answer, that's not a question they can really easily answer, to be honest with you. It's not a cut and dried situation. With respect to the budget, where is that 25,000, Steve? Which line item?
It is in the non-departmental appropriations.
Oh, no wonder I couldn't
Yeah,
find
it's on
it.
page C67. I don't know if
Okay, we don't have this here, and I don't have my
Yeah,
book
so
with me.
on that page,
C67.
if you want to refer to that page after the meeting or later on at your convenience, down at the bottom of that page, there's a section called Appropriations Other. It's a specific line item. It's called County at-large drains. You'll see the total expenditure is $200,000. In 2018, the expenditure was $150,000. Again, there's a 50% match on that, and that revenue is going to be included on page C65 under
The revenue is from the communities.
revenue from the communities is going
Okay.
to be in charges for services, I believe. So anyway, the appropriation went up 50,000, the revenue went up 25, so the net effect is the 25,000.
Okay. And I don't know if everybody knows this. There are 7 commissioners up here that almost every month have to attend the drain meetings. There are a few that might not have to attend one month and then attend 2 and then don't attend. I've never had a month off yet. But there are 7
Well, you're
of
our
us.
favorite because you ask the questions, man. She comes in, I just, all right, what's she gonna ask today?
So just for those commissioners that aren't attending those, you really do learn a lot at those meetings, but there are quite a few of us that are there every single month. That's all I have. Thank you.
Back in the day, they used to be called drive-through drain board meetings.
Yeah.
Procedures have changed a little bit since then.
Yes, they have.
All right, Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, I just want to publicly thank you and your staff for that wonderful fence at the Red Run Drain. If you'd seen it, you'd appreciate it more than ever. Thank you. Did a great job.
That was a fence apparently you've been asking for I don't know how many years. And and you came to one of the drain board meetings, and after at the end, you asked about this, and he said, my God, I walk there every day, and we went out and took a look at it, literally. It's right, I mean, you're walking, and then there's a 15-foot fall into the drain, about this much room. And so yes, now we put the fence up there, because if we would have had a lawsuit, everybody here would be paying, right? But we have called it the Marv Sauger fence. We didn't put a sign up, but that's what we call it.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me a second time. And Commissioner, just one of Commissioner Romano's questions triggered my memory in that he asked about property. And at one of your previous presentations, you mentioned that when you had came on, you had discovered that the Public Works Commission owned property that you didn't know existed, it didn't know was owned, including on M59, which is currently some staging area for the
Yes.
road reconstruction there, and some other properties. Is there a time frame for selling some of those properties? Have some of them been sold? And are they owned by drain districts? Or are they owned by the Public Works Commission? And what if they're owned by Public Works, or either way? Have been any estimation of the value of those properties at this point if they're sold?
Yeah, my philosophy is we're not in the land business. We need to sell, if we don't need these properties, we need to sell them, let them be put back on the tax rolls, et cetera. And so various things. That's the biggest piece that we own right there at the northwest corner of Hall Road and
How many acres?
Garfield.
Do you know how many acres?
It's
offhand?
about 7.
That's 6 acres.
Six something. We actually, if you go on our website, you'll be able to see everything. We've put all the information on how to bid, the minimum bid requirement and how they have to give us funds up front, or we're not just letting them come in and start bidding, right?
Are people bidding already?
We're going to have a public auction. It's going to be in our conference room, and anybody's welcome to come and see it. We're going to have our Ben Alola, who's, you say it better than me, Ben Boy, as we call him, is going to handle the auction there. And
has it been appraised?
yes, it was appraised at about $4 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And the minimum bid begins at 3.5. But we've had about 100 people already express interest. And we just put an ad in Cranes I think we charge, it's like $2,000 to put the ad in Cranes. But I mean, I want everybody in Oakland County and everywhere else to know that this is Washington. I mean, if we get one bid out of that, it's worth the $2,000, right, for that
Sure.
kind of money.
And
Now, the other
are
properties,
smaller, I assume.
yes, we had a property, Commissioner Myjack knows, called the Harrington Drain. There was about almost 5 acres on Ryan by 19 Mile that was owned by a drainage district called the Harrington Drain, which we sold for $290, $295, something like that. And that property has already been through the Sterling Heights Planning Commission for luxury homes. And it's just been sitting there for all these years. So the city was very excited about that. Then we have another piece of property on 21 in Sugar Bush, which has just been sitting there as well. And so we actually, the Chesterfield Township Library is looking, you know, they have their place on I think it's Herb, is it back there? And they got a great library, but it's, you don't even know it's back there. So they've been putting money into an account for years to try to get some more visibility someplace. Anyway, long story short, we came to an agreement with them, and they're going to purchase that and build a brand-new library. So everybody's very excited about that.
And that money is owned by, not a drain district, but by the Public Works.
That property is, in Chesterfield, that money's going to go into the mid, because
Okay.
that's who paid for it.
Gotcha.
The Harrington Drain, it went into the Harrington Drain
Okay.
drainage account. Tell you the truth, we looked at it, we don't really have to do any work in the Harrington Drain. So we're working with the city of Sterling Heights. I said, listen, I got almost $300,000 here that we don't need to spend here. We're going to do something else in Sterling Heights, some other drain project. So, because we're in the drain business.
And the property on Hall, that's owned by the Public Works or by a drain
By
district?
the mid.
By the mid.
Yeah, Macomb Intermediate Drainage District, which is the 11 communities.
Right.
And at some point, I'm going to come up and tell you about, you know, we did, after the interceptor collapse, we did a complete inspection of the other 17 miles of that drainage district. About $1.5 million it cost us to do a, you know, videotape inspection and everything. No surprise, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And
you know,
lots of work.
I forget how much we of a bond we issued to fix the collapsed sewer.
75.
75.
And we ended up spending about 70-something.
Okay.
So we have approximately, when we're all done with all the costs, we still got a few outstanding costs, will be about $4 million left that we did not spend, but we did issue the bond for, and we intend to spend that money on fixing all these problems that we have, which
Okay, so
is,
even when we sell that property on Hall Road, it's not like we can pay down the bond.
No.
Because there's so much work that needs to be done.
that is correct.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you,
and there's
Commissioner.
serious work that needs to be done, and I'll be talking to you about that at some point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for the interesting
Thank you.
presentation.
Really appreciate it all. Thank
We
you.
could talk to you for more this afternoon, but we got to let the road commission get up here.
Okay.
Department of Roads, to old school. Need a motion to receive and file and forward to finance. Moved by Commissioner Miles, supported by Commissioner Kleinfeld. Please vote. Who knew? Who knew? Very good. Thank you very much. So budget reviews of Public Works, Brian Santo, Director of Roads. Tee us off, please.
Yeah, actually, before we talk about the roads and before Commissioner Miller and her staff leave, Brian mentioned that,
Like the commercial.
and I mentioned before, and Brian mentioned again that we are in the process of actually October 1st went live with all the drain accounting for all the drain accounts being on our One Solution system. I just want to thank Commissioner Miller and her staff for their cooperation. It was a very intensive project involving my office and her office. I just wanted to thank you and your staff. Bruce,
our
their
finance
financial
guy.
manager, was very intimately involved in that. Just wanted,
What a novel concept to have the Public Works on the county system, right?
that will aid in the complete,
Or having the treasurer invest our excess money, I mean,
so just want to thank you.
just saying. Thank you.
Good night. See you.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Steve.
Department of Roads budget's on page D40. And you will notice that there's quite a large increase in the budget from the 2018 amended budget to 2019 of about $32 million, a little over $32 million, which on its surface would tell you that there's about a 25% increase. You'll also notice that there's about a $30 million increase in revenues to offset those increased expenses. So this is an example of one of those funds that looks as if there's a huge increase in the budget, but there's offsetting revenues, and it's also the type of fund that you want to be spending money out of. So, just point of emphasis there, you'll notice that of the $32 million increase, there's about $22.5 million increase in the line item road construction and maintenance, and about an $8.8 million increase in capital outlay. Item of note in capital outlay, you'll notice that the adopted budget for 2018 was about $14.5 million. The amended is just shy of $6 million. The board approved a transfer of $8 million, or basically a reappropriation of about $8.5 million earlier this year from 18 to 19 for the construction of a new maintenance facility at the 15-mile road facility. So again, when you look at 18 amended and 19 recommended, looks like it's going up 8.8 million, but really if you looked at adopted to adopted or adopted to recommended, it's not as large of an increase. So there is a request to add 3 positions, 1 electrician, a highway maintenance person, and an engineering aide. Total cost of about $344,000 for all 3 of those positions. And I will conclude my comments there. Mr. Santo and Ms. Mikatak from the roads are here to talk about any financial issues or operational issues.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Hello.
I want to apologize ahead of time. I'm not as eloquent or of a good a speaker as Commissioner Miller. So just to recap a little bit, very briefly, obviously I'm in front of you every month, basically, with our construction projects and cost share agreements. We obviously have a very healthy construction and maintenance program. We'll continue to do so in the future years. Proud of our northern communities as far as our limestone and brining program. Southern communities, we're touching more on the heavy maintenance, the mill and fills, doing more miles of maintenance versus less of our capacity projects, our widening projects. Those are becoming more challenging as far as funding, for one, and environmental assessments and such. So those are kind of on the decline, even though they're needed in certain scenarios and circumstances and locations. A little bit about what we're doing right now. Some of our major projects, Mound and Van Dyke. We're doing some rehabilitations on Mound, obviously with the horrible early season potholes that we had. We're securing that in advance of our Innovate Mound project that I'm going to talk of in a little bit. But we're securing Mound. We got a project on Van Dyke from the roundabout to basically M59. We do have a reconstruct and widening project coming up this next year. It is going to be under contract shortly, but it's 23-mile road from North Avenue to Fairchild. And I guess the follow-up is our Innovate Mountain project, where we were able to secure basically between the communities of Sterling Heights, Warren, and ourselves just shy of $98 million for the stretch on Mound from 696 to Hall Road. That is going to be probably in total a $200 million project. So securing half of the funds was something great to see. So we do have a healthy budget, as explained by Steve. Some of the increases are increases in the MTF funds. We do have kind of increases of the $7.6 million one-time state grant or state allocation. We have a $4.5 million allocation from the state, and an increase of about $6 million in MTF funds from last year to this year. So we are looking at using that money in our construction program. It's much needed, and looking forward to moving forward with that budget.
Thank you. Commissioner Majak.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple questions here, and this could be either for Steve or Brian. The first question is under the revenue side, intergovernmental. Why did that go up from 107 million to 137 million from 18 to 19?
Yeah, please. Michelle Mikatak, our finance director.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Michelle.
So the bulk of the increase was due to our federal revenue on our construction projects. And as Brian mentioned, we have a $6 million increase that the state is projecting at MTF. And there is a one-time PA 207 of about 7.7 million that's included in there. As well, the local revenue, there was a large increase in our city and township contributions for our 50/50 projects that we're doing.
Can you slowly repeat that again? I'm writing this
My
down.
apologies.
Federal was
Okay.
how much again? 32?
Federal revenue went from 28 million to 35 million.
Okay, and is that just, is that
On
every year
construction
every year
projects.
we're getting federal money, and this year we just got 7 million more?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. And then we have an increase in the state revenue, and that was attributed to the $6 million gas and weight increase that's projected for 2019.
That's the
The MTF.
6 cents gas tax a couple years ago? So we're
Correct.
getting 6 million extra per year because
It
of that.
varies. They're projecting a
varies.
6 million increase in 2019.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we have the one-time $300 million distribution.
Right.
And that amounts for Macomb County, 7.7 million.
Okay.
And that's the PA 207.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question I have is under the expenditure column, road construction and maintenance. You know, we're going from 77 million from 2018 to a little over 100 million in 2019. I would like to know if we could have a breakdown of where is that being spended. You know, I mean, I'm looking here. I mean, is it here under these local? The next page here it says local projects, 11.1 million, primary projects 64, and then traffic 15 plus maintenance of 9. Is that where
Correct.
that adds up to?
Yes.
Okay.
There are other dollars that are included there, like the purchase of right-of-way and such. These are just the construction, the actual cost of the construction.
Okay, very good. And then another question here, then why, because obviously roads is high in everybody's priority. So our road budget here from 2019 to 2020 is gonna go down by half, 49 million forecasted.
Tip works,
Why is that?
We have certain projects that obviously from year to year, we have monies that are secured. We do a call for projects that right about now to the community. So we have, for the increased funding, we have a line item for Act 51 funding. So there's a lump sum that goes into that. We work with the communities. They turn in their projects for submittal. We review them and move forward with the different communities as far as allocation of that money that we get for the next year. So we're in the process of securing that request from the different communities and then making a determination of actual project locations for that money to go.
I see, okay. And next question, Mound Road, 696 to 20 Mile Road. You said we secured 100 million?
Just shy of 98,
Right,
as
and-
far as grant money. Yes.
And then the other 102 or 100 million is gonna come from the local communities, Sterling Heights, Warren, the county. Am I right on that?
Yes, currently we have the contributing entities are Warren and Sterling Heights. We are looking at trying to secure a DAR grant through TACOM, through the DOD, Department of Defense, for monies to make improvement down at the south end by TACOM. So we're looking at securing grant funding. It's called Defense Access Road Grant. We're in the process of trying to secure money for that,
Okay,
so yes.
Is this project, the 100 million that we need from the communities, is there gonna be county money going into that as well, or no?
There'll be Act 51 dollars going into it,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. What would you say the portion would be between Warren, I mean, we're talking about a third, 50-50, you know, out of the 100 million, 50% county, 50% city, or it's way too early with all this going on?
Right now, as it sets, without any Defense Access Road grant figured in, or any potential, business contributions, if it's just us three as an entity, us, Department of Roads, Warren,
Right.
Sterling Heights, we would probably be looking at roads being probably 50%, and Sterling Heights probably about 33-34%, and Warren being about 16 or 17%.
So 50% is the county. I'm doing my math in my head here, that's $50 million.
That is correct.
Where are we gonna get that, given our budget for 2020, it's 51 million? But we're
Well, keep
talking
in-
about money that will be there that is not in the budget right now? Is that what that would be?
Yes, I mean, keep in mind that we are getting increased revenues from MTF funds, so there is extra money for that. Keep in mind also that this is not just a one-year project. So we're anticipating to try and start it in 2020. So it's either going to be, it has to be obligated as far as funding by 2021 per the application and grant requirements. So you're talking, if we started in 2020, it's going to be a 5-year process. So with the increased funding that we have, with the MTF funds throughout the years. We believe that we can fund that internally with the revenues that we take in.
And just one final question, Mr. Chair. With all these construction, I've never seen so many construction projects in my community, Sterling Heights, that I can remember. And I know we're doing construction projects in other parts of the county. What would you say as a road department director, with all those projects and with the Big Mound project coming up in a couple years, where does that take our roads in terms, what is our condition of our roads going forward? I mean, right now, or last year, I believe you told us that 51% of our roads are in poor condition. You know, with all these projects going on now and in the next couple of years, where does that get us percentage-wise, shape of roads?
It definitely does help the situation. It's not going to be a landslide to turn it to 50% good roads,
Right.
But it is a healthy start. It's not an end-all be-all as
Right.
far as the increased MTF funds that we get, or even, this Mountain Road corridor. Yes, it is 9 miles of a boulevard section, so there is a lot of lane miles in the county, compared to the over 800 miles of poor condition roads. It does help, but it's not an end-all be-all as far as finances.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is with all this going on, we need more help, and we need more help from the state government and the federal government to get where we need to go, or find some type of local millage or local source of funding. If we remember from the SEMCOG meeting, they came up here and they talked about how Michigan was short on that type of funding compared to other states. So thank you for coming here today.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are really quick and easy. On the project page, I'm down at Act 51 RRR. What does that mean?
It's basically a 3R project. It's basically our typical mill and fill projects.
Okay.
That's just what
the
it's designated,
RRR
yeah.
was. And then further down, 2019 PPP. Is that public-private partnership, or is that something else?
That's pavement preservation programs.
Perfect.
I've talked to those in the past. We have a HMA and a concrete, 2 different programs. So that's a year annually run program.
Okay. And I'm excited the bridge is getting done in my district. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, I need a motion to approve. Send to finance. Receive and file. Commissioner Kleinfeld, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner.
You see what I'm looking at, the haze. I just wanted to say thank you, because I give you a hard time every time you come up here on that. Thank you.
Thank
No
you
worries,
very
you're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
I need a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Gillette, supported by Commissioner, let's see, all the Italians. Please vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love Mound Road.
Now we got department recommendations. Brian, just want to sit there? We've got Centris, a signal maintenance agreement. We got 4 items there. 3 items.
I believe I got 2 for roads.
2, oh, 2.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
This is a software license renewal and maintenance of our system that we utilize for our traffic operations center. Centrax is a system that previously we went out for bids on the vendor to support this system for our traffic operations center. Basically, the communications between our traffic operations center, Comtech, and the signals and intersections in the county. Like I said, this was bid out. There were 5 bidders. Previously, there were 3 that were advanced to a short list, and 2 brought forward actual proposals for us to look at. We chose Econolite system that best fit our needs at the Comtech Center, and this is just basically extension or renewal of their software licensing and maintenance of the system. So seeking approval on that agreement.
Okay. I don't see any questions on this. I need a motion to send to finance. Moved by Commissioner Tocco, supported by Commissioner Leonetti. Please vote. Motion's approved. MDOT contract for traffic operations center.
Yeah, seeking approval for a MDOT contract approval for our, once again, our Comtech Center, our Traffic Operations Center. This is the money we get to support our operations for that facility in the amount of $2,200,000. Obviously, they have a match money with that, but this is what basically keeps our Traffic Operations Center up and functional and running. So looking at approval to move forward with this MDOT contract.
Okay, Commissioner Leonetti moves, supported by Commissioner Sauger. See any questions? Please vote. That's approved. Thank you, Mr. Santo. Appreciate it. Have a good
Thank you,
afternoon.
Commissioners.
Easy on you today.
Number C, budget amendment from Planning and Economic Development. Good afternoon.
Doing well. Always good to see you guys. So we found $235,000, which is a good thing. So I'll start with.
So you're reducing your budget request?
What was that?
Reducing your budget request by that amount.
Okay. Whatever you guys need to do.
Thank
We're
you.
here to help. So the first agenda item C is phase 2 of a continuation of an Office of Economic Adjustment grant that is coming through the Michigan Economic Development Corporation via the Michigan Defense Center. With these grant dollars, we will continue to deploy our strategic industry assessments and engagement on everything from cybersecurity to defense. This includes the Michigan Automotive and Defense Cyber Assurance Team, which our department has helped stand up and is engaging individuals that are looking at the emerging digital needs of companies that are dealing in automotive and defense contracting. We will also be deploying our Defense Protect and Grow Strategy Initiative, which included the tremendous success of the AUSA trade show, where we just were able to visit in Washington, D.C., in which we have about 4 leads that are coming into the county, everything from Israeli defense companies to domestic companies that are fulfilling OEM contracts to defense contractors. And then probably the cornerstone of this first agenda item is the International Landing Zone. We, through our efforts at the Velocity Business Incubator over in Sterling Heights, have created a soft landing zone where international companies that are coming in, whether they're dealing in defense contracts or advanced automotive elements, are able to come in, use this business resource center with whether it's business development personnel, advanced engineering personnel, and explore the market before just coming in here and buying a facility. What this has been able to do is it's given us the ability to engage those folks and really understand what their needs and expectations are, and really help us develop a strategy to find the best partners in region, or if they're looking to deploy a capital or a talent strategy here. So this is a $100,000 grant award, which we'll be working with the MEDC, and it has been a successful partnership in my assessment.
Outstanding job, JP. That's really positive.
It's all Vicky and the economic development team. They just give me the sheets of paper.
Very good. Well,
Yeah, that too.
Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that presentation. Is the grant covering all of our costs for these projects, or is there additional county funds that are being applied in some capacity?
There are additional county funds that are being supplied in some capacity. That's that protect and grow line item that we've been here to the board with 3 years consecutive now. So what we try to do with those dollars is we match those grant elements. If there's offset costs, whether it's on a contractual basis or with a trade show, those are figured out in the parameters of the grant. So as we build out these strategies, we're continually meeting those programmatic objectives, and this has been 3 consecutive years of money that the MEDC has says, Macomb County, you're doing it the best.
I see. So is our expenditures as a county, what % of what we're doing is funded by the grants versus what % is funded by the county? Best guesstimate.
Best guesstimate without having all 3 years of numbers in front of me, I'd say it's about a 1-to-1 match right now. So for every dollar we're putting in, the MEDC is coming in over the top with the same amount.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
That's a good ratio.
We'll keep it going.
Thanks a lot. And seeing no other questions, I need a motion to approve this amendment. Forward it to finance, rather. Moved by Sauer, supported by Kleinfeld. Please vote. You and I got a special connection. I know what you're thinking all the time. Thank you very much. Next budget amendment, JP.
Yeah, so item D is actually another element of the grant, which is Phase 3. Over the past 2 years, we've been working with the Michigan Defense Center and the city of Sterling Heights with our local school districts to explore the opportunity with us to develop a robotics collaboration and innovation center. As some of you may be aware, the Robotics World Championship is being held in Detroit the past 2 years. Robotics and FIRST Robotics is probably one of the most emerging and growing program areas within our high schools that is tied to CTE programming. Macomb County happens to be the county with the most CTE programs in the entire state of Michigan, and this has been an arena where we've been able to forge some pretty inventive partnerships with our private sector partners and our educational folks. This has been an area where with 16 different teams around the county right now, we have corporate partners that are putting tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, to support these robotics teams. They have regional competitions, statewide competitions, and then the world championships, which actually schools in Macomb County have won in the past. The whole thought of this Robotics Collaboration Center is to provide a resource center where all these robotics teams could come in and share tools, resources, materials, and those networks to advanced engineers over at GM, folks coming in from Ford that want to provide some curriculum assistance, engineers that would come in through FCA and the multitude of suppliers that we have around the county. It's a feasibility study that we did in Phase 1 where we actually worked with Sterling Heights, our corporate partners, and looked at the whole notion, what are some of the models around the country where they do this? That feasibility study led us to believe that we can actually do this. So we decided to petition the state and say, okay, if we were to stand up a 501c3 all alone that would not only be able to solidify this concept, work with all of our private sector partners and the school districts, what would it look like? Currently, we not only have the support of Macomb Community College and the Intermediate School District, we've done strategic outreach to all the districts that have active teams, talking with everyone from superintendents to volunteers and students. And I think we got a pretty interesting concept where we want to not only take these resources to bring in someone that will help us set up the administrative structure, but to also put together those types of funding networks that would be viable to support this. Definitely something that has some legs and a really, really interesting element that more or less we unearthed from the fact of the great network of automotive companies that we have in the county.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, is this a physical location? Like, is this something you would put in Velocity, or what's the plan for that?
So the initial assessment that we've had at this point in time is the easiest landing zone for this in the interim would be Velocity.
Okay.
The space is there, the corporate partners are familiar with it, and it'd give us a good place to just get the concept up and running.
Okay, just curious. I know there's a lot of northern communities that you wouldn't think have robotics teams, but actually have really good robotics teams, you know, Richmond, places like that.
Yep.
So I was curious if it was going to be central in the county or where that was going to be. So thanks, JP.
Commissioner
Thank you, Mr.
Kraft,
Chair.
accessibility is key for this. Transportation is one of the biggest barriers, but in talking with a lot of those northern districts, not only Romeo and Richmond, it was one of the things where we thought of, if we get the concept up and running, it gives us kind of that proof of concept to understand how we can deploy these resources. We even talked about mobile trailer units where out of the center, whether it be volunteers or administrators could go in and bring those tools, but having that central location gives us the capacity to build the concept. Yep, appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. Could we get a list of school districts that already have a team and have the capacity to partner in this situation?
I would be more than happy to provide you with some information on an open house that we're planning right now with the ISD, where we want to have each one of the 16 schools with their students and volunteers do an open house and showcase of the robots.
Okay.
So we're working right now with the ISD, and when we have that date, we'll get it up to the board
All right,
office.
I just would like to see a list just to see how different areas are doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinfeld. Commissioner Toko.
JP, have you worked with Lawrence Tech on any of this? And what their robotics program, they currently have a robotics program that's done through the high schools, is my understanding.
So while we have a relationship with Lawrence Tech and a number of other efforts that we're working on the talent development side, I don't know if we have established relationship on the robotics side, but we have been working with both Macomb Community College and Oakland University School of Engineering.
Okay, so what you're asking for is this match money?
No, this is just $135,000 that we're getting out of a grant. So then money would be coming into our budget, and then we would then come back to you as we bring on contractors to help us build the concept and actually get it up and running.
Okay, so what are you asking us for?
Because we're getting more money and
Right, but just to approve the grant?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. I wasn't sure what you were asking for. Thank you.
You're welcome. See no other speakers. Need a motion to approve. Started by Commissioner Kraft. Moved by Commissioner Kraft, supported by Commissioner Leonetti. Please vote. Thank you. That's been approved also, JP. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, guys. See you soon.
Very good. Next is the campus presentation update.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Andy.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide you the update this afternoon. Have a quick update here. We have one active project with the downtown campus renovation. It's a circuit court. At the time of this report, we had reported we're about 75% complete. We're actually approaching the end of this phase. We're about 95% complete.
Good.
We'll be wrapping up construction at the end of next week, and that will follow final cleaning and transition from the from the third floor into the final phase of the circuit court program on the second floor. So right now we're targeting a turnover of that space on the third floor with all moves completed mid-November, and concurrently we'll begin renovation on the second floor. As I mentioned, we're moving into the final phase, which is the second floor on the circuit court. And we have a small piece in the southeast corner of the lobby area where the construction entrance is. We have a partition up there for loading and unloading of construction materials to the elevator. So that portion will be completed as part of that last phase. We'll be starting that in mid-November. That last phase will wrap up at the end of February. That pretty much concludes my update. I did have a few pictures in here that kind of illustrate for you some of the renovation that happened both up on the third floor and then also the basement. I should mention that the basement renovation, that transition will be happening pretty much at the same time as we transition off the third floor to the second floor at the circuit court.
Very good.
Just to wrap up, the project budget remains at the $74.1 million. And as I mentioned previously, we will be concluding the program at the end of February of 2019.
Very good. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Just, he reiterated the 74. My question during capital outlay about change orders were that being the base. So there is nothing new, and I wasn't requesting anything previous to that base. So my question was, that came up recently, was asked and answered before this meeting. Just wanted to let you all know.
Okay, thank you. He's heard it, so glad you answered your questions.
Yes.
No other questions? I need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Commissioner Sauger, supported by Commissioner Gillette. Please vote. Thank you, Andy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for your information.
Good afternoon.
Next is a resolution 9A. Need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, Commissioner Cito and Romano, Italian strong. Any discussion? Please vote. Yes.
Just make a few points to it.
Yes.
That's okay.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, we've all talked before about the PA 51, which is, has been in place since 1951 and not really adapted to the changes in times and in the roads. So the resolution put together with the help of Crystal and Mike would address the state, or ask the state to address these issues as soon as possible. There's lots of bills that have been introduced. Two of them, like the House Bill 5706, which would recalculate the formula of linear roads to lane mile roads, so more populated areas with 4 and 5 lane roads would receive more fair allocation. And Senate Bill 945, which allocates the car registration increases to the county where the car is registered. So like Macomb County, who has 800,000, population of 800,000, that money would be going towards us and our roads rather than spread across the state. So that's just 2 examples of things that we'd like to see them take action on sooner than later.
Very good. It's absolutely right. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Please vote. Thank you very much. That resolution passes. Correspondence, we have a 10A and B, I need a motion to receive and file both of those. Moved by Commissioner Gillette, supported by Commissioner Romano. Please vote. Thank you very much. Those pass. New business, any new business come before the committee? Any new business? Seeing no business, public participation, anyone from the public wish to be heard? Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one, we'll close public participation. Need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Gillette, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.
Please vote. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good day.
Who put a mouse behind my microphone over here?
Don't, I cross my heart, hope to die, stick a needle in my eye. I did not do it, honestly.
Come on.
Is that, but it is my mouse. That is my mouse, but I didn't do it.